Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 5 o'clock here in the morning in Calgary, Alberta, and Wednesday morning, September the 22nd. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. I don't know who's awake at this time, but I had to bump my show up an hour because I have a lot of stuff I got to get done here today, and so I thought, well, I don't want to skip the show, so I'll just bump it up an hour. So I'm glad to be able to do it, and I wanted to continue looking at angerresources.com, looking at the shame-rage connection. Very interested in this because, everybody deals with anger, and everybody has to deal with anger, and but with anger and rage, rage has to come from somewhere, and there are ways to handle it. And I'm interested in this because I used to have a lot of rage as a young teenager and even into my early 20s, and I sort of learned to calm down and mellow out. But I'm interested in looking at the connection between shame and rage due to childhood abuse, right? So this website's got some pretty good information on it. I'm getting something out of it. I hope you are too. We looked at it yesterday, and so I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I don't hold any certificates in that area. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own shows. Just to be one more voice out here talking about this stuff, and also, to let people know, to keep holding on and, look for help where you can find it, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, or group support, just reaching out and getting some help, right? Because so many times survivors of abuse of any type do not reach out and get any help, right? They just suffer along in silence, and it's a very sad and lonely place to be. And there is help out there. That's what I'm starting to notice, since I've been on my healing journey for a while now, and I just, I'm glad to be on this end of it, let me tell you that. So, but I know what it's like to be sitting back there in that dark place, and I just want to be one more voice for people and to sort of say, hey, we can do this, So I'm not a professional. You have to listen at your own discretion. Anybody under the age of 18, there's a lot of adult material on my shows, and it's because I talk about all the issues surrounding child abuse, right? So if you're under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows. Have an adult or someone who's older, a parent, caregiver, maybe if you have a teacher at school that you trust or counselor at school, somebody who can listen to the shows with you, one of them anyway, and just to see if it's something that you should be listening to, right? Very important. Because you got to keep yourself safe at all times. And I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and, that's what we're doing. We're fighting to save children's lives really every day and trying to make a difference in this world for children to make it a safer, better world, and stop child abuse and prevent child abuse. And I think young people under the age of 18, you'd be doing yourself a favor to check, get permission to listen to these types of shows just to make sure it is something that you should be listening to. You need to protect yourself at all times. Because there's a lot of sick people out there doing a lot of horrible things to people, and especially to young children. And so you have to be very, I don't believe in living in fear. That doesn't help. Getting educated, get the education. Learn how to keep yourself safe, right? And parents, learn how to keep your children safe and how to keep your family safe, right? So important. So we'll get right into this article here. Excuse me. And it's called The Shame-Rage Connection from Feeling Defective and Inadequate to Becoming Disrespectful and Explosive, written by Dave Decker, M.A., and he's I'm going to actually just go back over and look at what they had to say about him. This is from www.angerresources.com, and that's ANGERESOURCES, so that's angerresources.com. And Dave Decker, M.A., he's a licensed psychologist. He's currently practicing in St. Paul, Minnesota, and he provides domestic abuse and general mental health services for his clients. So his areas of expertise include domestic abuse, anger regulation, men's issues, depression, anxiety, stress management, shame and family of origin issues, and EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. So that's Dave Decker. He himself and Mike Obsatz have come up with this site. And Mike Obsatz he's received an honorary degree from Macalester College, St. Paul, Minnesota, He retired after 40 years of service to the college, and his courses included institution of the family, human sexuality, male socialization issues, and violence, and death and dying. And he earned his BA in psychology from Brandeis University in Waltham, Massachusetts. And so he's also, like, himself and Dave Decker have come up with this website called Anger Resources. So there's all kinds of good stuff on here. This is www.angerresources.com. And I wanted to just look at the shame-rage connection that they were talking about, and we read through some of that yesterday. And I find it very interesting because, you know, when if you've grown up in an abusive home, violent, and, you know, a lot of negativity and anger and rage going on, you know, and just being abused as a child, right? We developed this whole shame thing, this whole toxic shame thing, which I didn't even know much about until I started checking into it within the last few months and looking at what John Bradshaw had to say about toxic shame and all that stuff. So that's very interesting, and I've just learned so much out of this stuff because it sort of helped. I didn't realize that shame was what I was feeling, you know, because I thought shame was more like an action, like shame on you or shame on your behavior, right? I didn't really relate it to how I was feeling, you know what I mean? So I think it's very interesting to look at the shame-rage thing. And they said shame is a significant part of all emotional distress in life. It can lead to a whole host of compulsive, addictive, irresponsible, demoralizing attitudes and behaviors, and contribute to all sorts of emotional, physical distress that human beings experience. And I think they said that some shame at some point when we're young is not too harmful because it actually shows us that we're not perfect and that, you know, it sort of allows for some humility. But they said when it's coupled with abuse and you know, you don't have any support and it's just, you know, you grow up in a real negative environment with a lot of abuse and violence and destruction going on around you, and the shame can turn into toxic shame, right? And then, of course, that leads to all kinds of problems. So that's why I really want to take a look at the shame-rage connection, because I knew I was raging when I was young, and I knew why. You know what I mean? But the whole issue is that I'm just interested to see what the actual connection is, because I don't rage anymore like I used to, right? I've come a long way. But I know that a lot of people have a lot of rage inside them, and it's horrible. It's a horrible place to be. It's a horrible place. It's very, very hard on a person. Physically, emotionally, psychologically. It's hard on the people around them, you know what I mean? So we went through this whole thing where he was talking about, you know, if childhood experiences shape your life, and it says when shame becomes a part of you, you end up experiencing a gnawing sense that something is vaguely and indescribably wrong with who you are and the way you're living your life. And it says you may have learned to face each day with a sense of fear and dread, which has gotten in the way of handling life's challenges. It says you may have learned that other people cannot be trusted and that you need to be constantly on guard so that others do not hurt or take advantage of you. And it says this sets up the stage for a person to feel hostile and angry much of the time and gets in the way of developing close relationships with others. And he was saying that yesterday we were looking at this section where, well, he says when you experience and internalize others' shaming, punishing, and demeaning messages, toxic shame is created. And that's for, you know, like if you're verbally, emotionally, psychologically abused, physically abused, really in any way. That's what happens, right? We internalize other people's abuse, right? And toxic shame is created. It says these wounds might have been created by your parents if they were abusive and neglectful. They could have been created by siblings or other children, teachers, coaches. Even strangers might say something disrespectful, right, or treat a person disrespectfully as a child, and then, you know, this is where this type of stuff really destroys, like, the self-esteem and self-respect, and sets the stage for shame to overwhelm our sense of self, right? So he says, when you were treated in a punishing and hurtful way, or simply neglected and ignored, you may have taken these messages in and begun to believe that they were an accurate representation of who you really were. So, you know, these hurtful things that people say, and you know, if you were abused as a child and went through a whole lot of verbal and emotional abuse, then a lot of times we actually believe what that person said about us, right? Our parents or whoever was the abuser in our lives, right? And yeah, it's like, being told that you're worthless or something, right? I mean, I was quite often told that I was worthless and useless, no good, rotten was a good one. And I just started to believe it, after a while. And something inside of me knew it wasn't right. But in the meantime, if I made a mistake, then I'd be really hard on myself, because I was, when you're abused like that, verbally, in any way, really, physically, doesn't matter, sexually, it's all so hurtful, And then when you have this low self-esteem and low self-worth, and so then if you do something wrong or make a mistake, you actually almost feel like that person that they've created you to be. You almost feel like as if that's a true portrayal of who you really are, worthless and stupid or whatever, right? Whatever our abusers told us, right? And that's really sad, because he says here essentially what happened in this process is someone else wrote a life script for you. And this is where we left off yesterday talking about this. It says you were told through the ways that you were spoken to and treated how to be and how to live. And you really and you did not really ever have the opportunity to figure out who you actually were and wanted to be. And it says you certainly were not were not allowed to write your own life script. Not as children. Right? We're forced to endure whatever we got to endure. And so it says that's really interesting, I think. I really like what he said there about writing our life script, right? I mean, my parents were my main abusers, so they wrote my script for me. And I'm glad that I have the opportunity to change that script around for myself and throw that other script away, tear it up and throw it away, because that's just it. We shouldn't have to suffer because of somebody else writing a horrible life script for us. I mean, when I saw this yesterday, I was like, whoa, I really like that, because it's a real good visual way to sort of see what abusive people do. They write this horrible script for you and put it on you, and you're supposed to act it out. And of course, it's their problem, but they push it on us, right? My parents' problems were made to be my own problems, Their inability to handle life and handle anything at all was put on me. So, you know what I mean? I was kind of forced to live this horrible life script that they created for our family and for myself. So that's just the thing, right? As an adult, I'm happy to be able to sit here and say, man, I can write my own script. I don't have to suffer for the rest of my life, and I don't have to feel less than or, not worthy or not worth it, or, this whole lack of self-esteem and confidence, I mean, that's ridiculous. And about 4 years ago when I started my healing journey, I thought, man, I never deserved that abuse in the first place, and no one does, right? And I thought, well, then I need to fight to live, because if I go on and succeed and learn to enjoy this life and learn to love myself and nurture myself, this was 4 years ago, then I win this fight. My parents lose big time. And so I decided to be like a dog with a bone. I was like, no, I'm going to do this because I want, it's not that it's not revenge. It's the fact that I want to win this fight. And I believe that, my parents started this thing way before I was born. And if I was to self-injure and hurt myself and allow myself to continue to stay in this depressed state that I had been in for cognitively for over 35 years, I thought, this is ridiculous, They did that to me. Shame on them. The shame belongs to them. It doesn't belong to me. So as soon as I figured that out and I realized, hey, this shame doesn't even belong to me. It's their shame. Shame on them. Because that's really bad when parents do that to their children, and we know that's happening all over the place all the time. Abuse of any kind it hurts, and it doesn't matter what it is: physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, neglect, you name it, spiritual abuse. The whole thing hurts, and so shame on those people who are perpetrating that crime, because it's a crime. I tell you that. And and then to act the rest of the family, because they're all so dysfunctional, to act like you should just be okay with it. You know what I mean? A lot of times survivors are just told, oh, just suck it up, oh, it couldn't be that bad, or other family members will try to minimize the abuse because they don't want to look at it. They might not have been abused in the same way. Many times siblings are not treated the same within families. There might be one or two siblings that are picked on out of a group of five, Might be some that are favorited, and that was happening in our family for sure. Out of 7 kids, you bet. So, that's just the whole issue. And then you got the dysfunctional whole family thing going on. Everybody's saying, oh, well, there was nothing wrong with, you were just a bad kid, reinforcing all that garbage that our parents put on us. And that's why I absolutely refuse to accept that. You know what I mean? I absolutely refuse to accept the abuse that my parents put on me. I used to think of it as this necklace that was around my neck, and it was just hanging there, all this abuse and this stupid, horrible life that they had put on me as a child was hanging around my neck, and I was just carrying it along through life, and it was heavy. You know what I mean? And I thought, why am I carrying this thing around? It does not even belong to me. This is ridiculous what they put on me. And so I took that necklace off and I threw it away. And, dysfunctional members of my family are still very toxic. And as much as I love them, they're not on my healing journey with me. And so pretty much what are you going to do with that? The separation starts here, right? Because I can't continue on in that dysfunctional BS of, let's pretend none of this happened type of thing. Oh, no, it was great. Let's just pretend that it was all wonderful when I know the truth, you know what I mean? And they know the truth too, but I don't know, for whatever reason, they're just not facing it, or they just rather not face it, right? So that's the thing. Someone else wrote a life script for us, and we don't have to keep it. We can throw it away, and we can get our own life script, and I really like that. So we'll continue on where we left off here, and it says, essentially, so we're not allowed to write your own life script, right, as a child, right? So it says, it is literally as if you were enlisted to act out a role in a drama that was written, directed, and produced by someone else. And unfortunately, that someone didn't have your best interests at heart. And what makes this even worse is that there is a lifelong commitment to this production with no escape clause. So this is just a thing. I really like what he's written here. It says you are expected to live and die with this contract that was written for you by the shamers. So, see, this is the thing. It's like somebody else wrote the script, and they're actually directing it. They are producing it. They are expecting the contract to be fulfilled, right, with this no escape clause. And you're expected to live and die with this contract that was written for you by the shamers, the abusers, right? And so it says, what is the contract you had with the writers, the directors, and the producers of this script? The contract is based on a set of unrealistic, distorted core beliefs. And these are the rules and values you attempt to live by, what you expect from yourself, other people, and the world around you. And so it says everyone has core beliefs, and there are the values that are important to us. Unfortunately, if you were shamed, yours were developed and shaped by the negative and disrespectful messages you received from the people who hurt and demeaned you. So these messages communicated in a clear and powerful way to you, even up to the present, that you as a human being are defective, inadequate, powerless, incompetent, unlovable, and alone. Being put down, ridiculed, or ignored by others gave you the message that you didn't really count and that you were unimportant and of little value. This does not help you feel very good about yourself, and it has the potential to create anger and even rage at times. So this is the thing, right? I mean, these messages and this stuff that we had to go through as children, a lot of times, when it's that serious, that it does take that it's abuse, and it's not just, a lot of times. I mean, it's abuse anyway. But if a child is not really being abused at home and they have a lot of loving support and care, they run into a bully at school, and the bully, says things about them or abuses them in some way, and they go home and they get a lot of support from home and a lot of support from the teachers, chances are they'll be all right because they've got some support. But when you're growing up in an abusive home and there's nobody there to support you, maybe one person out of the whole family might show a little bit of attention, but let's just say the rest of the family is just very dysfunctional and abusive, that child's going to have a hard time. Let me tell you that, because there won't be anybody to sit there and say, don't listen to that. You know what I mean, or try to get that child some help, right? And so many of us survivors out here have had to live, and grow up in these homes where there was no support from anyone, right? And this I know is a fact because I knew so many kids growing up who were in the same boat. Actually, some of them situations were worse than mine. And so, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible what people do to their children, right? So it gets kind of internalized after a while, and we feel like we don't count. And that's why I always say, we do count, we do matter. And as soon as I started to realize that I did count and did matter, man, I was like, was like, I'm going to win this fight, because I was like, I do count, I do matter, and my life is important to me, and I don't care who doesn't like it, whatever. I started to get a little bit proactively angry, right? Not angry destructive-wise, because that's what I had been doing all my life before. I turned it around and started to get positive, proactive anger going, because I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I did not deserve to suffer that, and I should not be paying the price for this in my 40s from something, that my parents put on me my whole entire youth and childhood, right? And I can get help. I can learn how to nurture myself. I can learn, and I can't expect everybody to be doing all of it for me. I need to do this myself. I started to really look within myself and to realize that this angry, wounded child inside of me, this inner child, was raging, and I needed to get her some help. So I just started to do a lot of self-nurturing, and saying, I do count, I do matter, and that little child inside of me that's raging did not deserve any of that treatment at all, and no child does, right? So I started to sort of self-nurture, and it really did make a big, huge difference, I tell you that, once I started to look in on the situation and see what the root cause was, and really take a look at the whole situation and say, man, I can heal. I can move forward. I can learn how to love this life and love myself. I don't have to sit here and live in this for the rest of my life, this pit of despair, And so many times, survivors, it's just horrible because until we get the realization that we do count, we do matter, that we never deserved any of that abuse in the first place. The shame belongs to the abusers, not us, right? That's so important for people to realize that shame really doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the people who were perpetrating the abuse, the abusers. That is their shame. Shame on them. You know what I mean? So I started to turn direct the anger where it should have gone, which was towards my abusers. But in the meantime, in order to have my heart heal, like I had to do a lot of work on forgiveness, but not for them, but for myself. And a lot of people say, how could you forgive your parents, after what they've done to you? And I would say, well, because if I don't, then I stay in this pit of hell and hatred, and I can't do that because that's what was killing me, that whole hatred, and despair. And of course, I love my parents. I mean, every child loves their parents, pretty much. It's just an innate. It's just inside of us to love. We know love. We know what it is. But yet, when they hurt you and they destroy your life, they try to kill you and they try to destroy your life. You sit back and you think, man, that's horrible. And then all of a sudden this negative energy starts floating around. That negative stuff was really killing me. At the age of 40 years old, I was contemplating suicide and contemplating self-injuring because I was so tired of dragging around with the knowledge of what had happened to myself and my family and what my parents had done to me as a child. It was eating me up. It was just tearing me up because I had a lot of anger and rage towards my parents, but it was all internalized, right? And so I thought, no, this is just ridiculous. I don't have to live like that. I deserved a way better life, and so I have to do it. I'm going to have to be the one to reach out and take make it count. You know what I mean? Nobody else can do it for me. So I started to realize this, and once I did that, I started my healing journey, right? So I hope that other people will, do the same and really just start self-nurturing and put away, throw away that necklace or that garbage that was put on us by our abusers. We don't have to carry that around. That is absolutely ridiculous. And shame on them, and shame on any dysfunctional family members who would think that it's okay. For instance, I use this as an example. My mom bashed my head in with a rolling pin, and my sister keeps the rolling pin. It's a keepsake. My mom's passed away now 15 years ago. And my sister keeps the rolling pin because she says, oh, this is Mom's rolling pin. I'm like, that's a stupid rolling pin that Mom bashed my head in with. And so, but my sister never says, you know what, that's just horrible. And she doesn't come over and hug me. She doesn't say, I'm so sorry that Mom almost killed you with that rolling pin. And, Mom treated you so bad and Dad treated you so bad, because they didn't treat her the same way, right? She was kind of the favorite. And she always likes to say she was treated the same way, but she wasn't. That's a fact. So the whole issue is that she doesn't come over and say, you did not deserve that, and, I'm going to throw away this rolling pin, and let's have a throwaway session where we'll write whatever we want to say about this on this rolling pin, and then we will either, we'll destroy it. But my dysfunctional family members think it's perfectly okay that my mom tried to kill me. And I don't think my mom intentionally was trying to kill me. She was trying to hurt me, is what she was doing, which she always was. And She was always trying to hurt me, which she did. She really did. She killed me. So this is the whole issue, a lot of times dysfunctional family members will think it was perfectly okay what happened to us, right? And it's their own inability to deal with the whole issue. It has absolutely nothing to do with us. It's their own inability. It's just their own lack of strength or whatever it is to face the whole thing. So they deny it, or they just diminish it. And that's what society does about abuse as well. Minimize it, deny it. Society just loves to do that because it's so incredibly painful. Who wants to look at it? But we survivors have to look at it. You know what I mean? And we were forced to look at it because we were forced to endure it. And so we go through life facing it. And if we don't face it, we end up with all kinds of problems. Because internalized stuff really is what causes us to be so dysfunctional as adults, right? And that's why it's so important to get help so that we can learn to work through this stuff. Whether it's group support, like me, I like online group support myself because it's just safety in numbers, and I just like the whole idea that it's very convenient. But some people would need more than that. They'd need a counselor or a therapist, somebody for more one-on-one, help, right? And if you do, well, there's no shame in that. But the shame lies with the abusers, that's for sure, And so, I would say don't suffer on your own and suffer in silence and sadness. Get some help. Reach out. There's all kinds of survivors out here who are more than willing to grab onto your hand. And that's what happened to me. I started reaching out, and all these hundreds of hands started reaching out to me. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, my God. The support that was, I had never experienced that in my entire lifetime. And so I consider those people to be my real family. And, they're the ones that care about me. So that's really awesome. And so it says often people will vow to themselves unconsciously or sometimes even consciously that they will never allow others to treat them in any way that they perceive to be similar to this again, to the abuse, right? And as adults, they are big and strong and powerful enough to go right back at that other person, even if it means becoming disrespectful, explosive, and abusive themselves. And I mean, that was me. I said I was not going to be hurt, so it'd have to be somebody else. So that I grew up like that. I used to sleep with a knife, and I'd be like, well, it's not going to be me. It'll be, I'm not the one going to lose my life. And I was 8 years old, sleeping with a knife because I thought it's not going to be me, but it'll definitely be somebody else. Because I was willing to protect myself, and that's how serious it was, you know what I mean? And then growing up as a young adult, right, it's like, well, I'm not going to allow anybody to mistreat me, so I was very, quite often rude to people, disrespectful, even my peers. And I did a lot of drugs, and so I was always acting crazy. And because I was always acting crazy, a lot of people stayed away from me, right? So I had the advantage there. Because I would act out and do all kinds of crazy, dangerous behavior stuff, right? And so a lot of people, unless they really knew me, actually stayed quite far away from me. And that was just a defense mechanism. You bet it was. It was also an escape, right, to escape the abuse, right? So I wouldn't have to think about the whole situation, and I could continue on in this dysfunctional, codependent thing that I had going with my parents, right, and my family, which my other family members are still very codependent. Me, I'm learning how not to be, right? So I'm keeping everybody at a distance right now because I'm learning to get my own life, right? And I need my own life. And they can either be a part of it, but if they're not going to be a healthy part of it, then they just don't get to be a part of it, right? So we're going to continue on with this tomorrow, and I hope you will check it out, www.angerresources.com, ANGERRESOURCES.com. And there's all kinds of stuff on here. There's like an anger test. There's just good information about anger and, healthy anger and what is, how to handle anger and rage, right, or road rage and this type of stuff, right? But we're going to continue on with this tomorrow, and I'll be on tonight as well. Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers, as well as my own show after that. So, and then tomorrow morning, not same time, beyond 6 o'clock tomorrow, my normal time. So have a great day, everybody. If you need something, get a hold of me here on Blog Talk Radio. Send me a message or whatever, Facebook and whatnot. I'll be around. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.